update on my subclinical hypothyroidism, which is needing to get results so that we can try to conceive. So I got the lab results through a portal last week that my TSH was 4.2. I had a subclinical high-ish TSH level 3 years ago as well, so this is now my second hypothyroid leaning level, but also this was tested this time to try to find a cause of why I've been having like 12-day long periods for the last 9 or 10 months. After the result came back, the OB's office had called me and just to give me a heads up that when I came back to my next appointment, which was yesterday, that they would want me to start thyroid replacement. So I started doing lots of Googling, and from everything I had read, sometimes even with just one subclinical thyroid level, but certainly when you've had two with a little bit of distance in between, the next step usually is to do lab work for something called a T4 and to test for Hashimotos, because Hashimotos is like 80% of all hypothyroid, and even more so in people in my age range. And also, if you have a subclinical TSH but a particularly low T4, then you can actually have overt hypothyroidism, like the balance between your TSH and your T4 makes some difference. And so once TSH is off, they want to test T4. I did also see that in the 4 point something range, there's kind of a lot of debate between different care providers if it's something that should be treated or not if you're not trying to conceive. But when you are trying to conceive, then like across the board, it gets treated across the board. You want under a 2.5, some even want under a 2. But if I weren't trying to conceive, then whether or not they would choose to treat it would be up in the air depending on the doctor. So I knew that going in. Also, from what I had seen is a lot of times when you're in that 4 range, if you're symptomatic, then they're more likely to try treatment. And based on this being the leading theory we have on why I'm having 12 days of bleeding a month, I think that makes me symptomatic. And so when I went into my appointment yesterday, I was expecting, as they had told me on the phone, that they would want to start thyroid replacement medication, but also that he would want to request those 2 labs. And he did explain the medication he wanted me to take, and he said he wanted me to try it for 6 weeks, and then we would repeat the TSH to see how much my thyroid has come down. But then he basically just said, like, do you have any questions? And so I asked if he thought we should test my T4 or for Hashimoto's. I reminded him that I had had a high TSH before, so it's not like some people will just have like an infection or some like acute event that causes a one-off thyroid level, but that clearly isn't me at this point. And his answer to that was, no, your thyroid is normal, so we don't need to like test for anything. The only reason we're treating this is because you're trying to conceive. If he had said, if you weren't trying to conceive, we wouldn't treat this, that wouldn't have surprised me at all. But saying that it would be normal doesn't fully seem true. And also from what I had read, it's pretty typical to want to know if it's Hashimoto's or not, because Hashimoto's is autoimmune, and if it's not Hashimoto's, then it's likely not autoimmune. So that can make some differences in how the like levels fluctuate. It can make a difference in how the postpartum experience goes. And like, frankly, if there's a likelihood that I have an autoimmune disorder and it's just a blood test to test it, like, I want that blood test. I want to know if I have an autoimmune disease or not. He said that that just did not make sense because my level was under 5, and under 5 is normal. A specific quote that he said was, thyroids are just finicky a lot of the time. After the appointment with him ended, I re-googled things just to make sure that I wasn't like misremembering or misunderstanding anything. But really everything I was reading was that like if you've had 2 4 point something TSH levels, like the norm would be for a doctor to want to know your T4 and to want to know if you have Hashimoto's. So I decided to call my primary care office, and she was like booked out for the next couple of weeks, but she happened to have one cancellation yesterday afternoon. And so even though I'm like way too introverted and neurodivergent to usually do 2 doctor's appointments in one day, I went ahead and did it just because the opportunity was there. And I'm really glad I did, because she was happy to write those requests for me. It worked out really well because those needed to be done before I was on thyroid replacement to get an understanding of where my body is naturally at. She said even if I had taken a single dose of the thyroid replacement, then it would have impacted how those labs would have turned out. She also had asked me, she's like, are you sure that when they got your TSH lab back that they didn't do a reflex lab, which I guess is where, like, some laboratories, if like you get a certain subclinical TSH, they'll use your remaining sample to automatically test your T4 and your Hashimoto's levels just because it's like so assumed that you would want them. But mine did not. And she couldn't have the labs run at her office because it was like 3:30 when I got in with her yesterday, and these need to be done in the morning for some reason. But she wrote me the request to have them done at a hospital near my house, which is not the hospital that she's affiliated with, but it is the hospital that my OB's office is affiliated with, and it's like way closer to my house, so it's just way more convenient. So then this morning, I got up and went to this local hospital, to the outpatient area, signed in on the kiosk, and phlebotomist came and got me and printed off a thing, got a vial, and basically said thanks. And it just hit me like, I know she had said there was at least 3 labs, and so I thought it was odd that there was only 1 vial. And I said, can you tell me like what all is listed on there, like what they're testing for? And she said, oh, there's just one, it's just your TSH. And so I asked who had requested that, because I didn't know if my primary was going to re-request the TSH, and so I just had one done like 3 weeks ago, or if she would just do the other ones. And the doctor's name was my OB. And so I was like, oh no, like that request was put in there for like 6 weeks from now, after I do 6 weeks of thyroid replacement. We weren't supposed to do that today. I was trying to get labs done for my primary. And so she asked for my primary's name. She didn't have the information in her system. So he accidentally did the wrong lab, and then I wasn't able to do the right labs. So I went home, got on the portal for my primary's office, and was like going through yesterday's notes to like see what the heck happened, to see if I could figure it out. And she had sent the labs to the hospital that she's affiliated with, even though we had like specifically talked about not doing that. I'm sure she just forgot, or the assistant didn't catch it, or whatever. Like, understandable, but still frustrating. So of course then I had to call my primary's office and let them know that it accidentally got sent to the wrong hospital and to please send it to the right hospital, and now I have to wait another day before starting my thyroid med. But hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to do that additional testing, and then I think within a few days at least should have answers on my T4 and whether or not I have Hashimoto's. It's all been like really draining for me, mostly because it activates a like trauma wound trigger thing that I have around like not being believed or not being understood, being dismissed or gaslit type of a thing comes up for me, even though I don't have that kind of trauma in this medical setting in particular. It's just kind of like a widespread issue that I have. And so yeah, it's been tiring, on top of just doing 2 appointments in one day. And actually, my husband also had a psychiatry appointment yesterday. It was just telehealth, but I sat in on that. So we actually had, between the 2 of us, we had 3 appointments yesterday, which is crazy for us. We are way too introverted and neurodivergent for that nonsense.